From the UFC world, Ilia Topuria says that if you guys ever boxed, he would knock you out based on the first punch.
That dude drunk, you know. Hey, you know, a lot of MMA guys, they drink a lot, so he must have been on that alcohol that day.
What happens when one of the UFC's most confident champions is called out by one of the best boxers alive, and the word drunk gets thrown into the mix? That's exactly what just went down between Ilia Topuria and Terence Crawford, and it has the fight world split right down the middle. Topuria, fresh off his rise to becoming one of the most feared men at featherweight, didn't just aim his fire at another MMA fighter, he went straight for one of boxing's pound-for-pound kings. And instead of brushing it off quietly, Crawford clapped back in a way that stirred up even more drama. The back and forth has quickly turned into one of the hottest debates in combat sports today, because it isn't just about two fighters, it's about pride, ego, and which sport is truly tougher. Ilia Topuria's rise in the UFC has been nothing short of stunning. When he first arrived, he wasn't given the red carpet treatment that other hyped prospects sometimes get. Instead, he was forced to work his way through tough veterans and dangerous opponents. But from the very beginning, fans could see that there was something different about him. His striking was sharp, his grappling was deadly, and his confidence was sky high. In every fight, he seemed to carry himself with the kind of energy that only undefeated fighters can have, the energy of someone who has never tasted defeat and doesn't plan to. For him, every fight has been a step closer to proving not just that he's the best featherweight, but that he's one of the best fighters in the world, period. His performances speak for themselves. Whether it was quick knockouts or dominant displays of skill, Topuria made it clear that he wasn't in the UFC just to make up the numbers. He wanted to leave a mark. Fans in Spain and Georgia already treat him like a superstar, waving his flags, chanting his name, and filling arenas whenever he fights. In the United States, his popularity has grown with every highlight reel finish, and in his own mind, there's no limit. That's why, when asked about a possible fight with Crawford, he didn't hesitate for even a second. He didn't play it safe. He didn't talk about how hard it would be. He said flat out that he would put Crawford to sleep the first time they touched gloves. For Topuria, it wasn't just words. It was the truth as he sees it. On the other side of this storm is Terence Crawford. If you know anything about boxing, you know his name. Crawford is a champion who has already conquered 3 different weight classes, a feat that puts him in rare company. He's undefeated, and he hasn't just won fights, he's made great fighters look ordinary.
Who do you watch in the UFC that you think has the best boxing?
My guy, what's his name?
You seen Topuria's? Cody Garbrandt?
He the best UFC boxer.
Have you seen Topuria?
Yeah, but I don't know, man. Cody got them hands.
But Cody's not, like, I'm not on him, but he's not on the...
But I'm saying, we talking about straight boxing.
Straight boxing?
His biggest statement came when he faced Errol Spence Jr., a man many thought would be his toughest rival. Instead of a close back-and-forth battle, Crawford dismantled Spence from start to finish, dropping him, breaking him down, and stopping him in one of the most dominant performances boxing has seen in years. That win pushed Crawford to the top of pound-for-pound lists and cemented his legacy as one of the greatest of his generation. Crawford isn't loud outside the ring, he doesn't scream into cameras or trash talk like some fighters. He carries himself with calmness and confidence. So when he was told that Ilia Topuria claimed he'd be able to knock him out in the very first exchange, Crawford's reaction wasn't anger, it was amusement. He brushed it off, saying that Topuria must have been drunk when he said that, and adding that MMA fighters drink a lot, so it made sense. It was a short comment, but it carried a sting. By calling Topuria drunk, Crawford wasn't just dismissing the challenge, he was mocking it, and in doing so, he lit a fire that Topuria couldn't ignore. Fans immediately took sides. Some laughed along with Crawford, agreeing that a top-level boxer would easily outclass an MMA fighter in a boxing match. Others felt it was pure disrespect, another example of boxing fans looking down on MMA fighters, as if their accomplishments mean less. The rivalry between the two sports has always had that edge, and Crawford's words poured gasoline on the flames. To MMA fans, this wasn't just Crawford brushing off Topuria, it was him brushing off their entire sport. Topuria, never one to back down, fired back with precision. He said that boxers like Crawford love to criticize MMA fighters, but very few of them ever have the courage to cross into the cage. He reminded everyone that MMA fighters have consistently taken risks by stepping into boxing. From Conor McGregor facing Floyd Mayweather, to Francis Ngannou stepping in with Tyson Fury, to Anderson Silva boxing after his UFC career, the examples are plenty. But how many boxers have stepped into an MMA cage to test themselves? Almost none. Topuria's point was simple. If Crawford really wanted to prove he was as good as he said, he should step outside his comfort zone. This argument is part of a bigger debate that has been going on for years. Fans love to argue about whether boxing or MMA is the tougher sport. Boxing has a longer history, with legends like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, and Sugar Ray Leonard becoming global icons. It's a sport built on precision, timing, and endurance. MMA, on the other hand, is the newer phenomenon that combines multiple fighting styles into one brutal package. In MMA, fighters have to worry about kicks, elbows, knees, takedowns, submissions, and punches. It's a more complete form of combat, but it's also younger as a mainstream sport. That's why, whenever an MMA fighter steps into boxing, the debate reignites.
We ain't talking about nothing else. We talking about straight boxing skills. I just think Cody got the best boxing skill UFC. That's just my opinion.
So you think if there was one UFC fighter that would have any chance against you in the world, it'd be him?
Nah, he's too small. In the boxing ring? Nah.
Fans argue about whether boxing's focus makes them sharper strikers, or whether MMA's variety makes its athletes tougher. The McGregor vs. Mayweather fight in 2017 was the biggest example of this. It broke pay-per-view records, even though most experts knew what would happen. Mayweather, one of the greatest defensive boxers of all time, eventually stopped McGregor in the later rounds. But the fight proved one thing: when MMA and boxing collide, the world pays attention. More recently, Francis Ngannou shocked everyone when he not only survived against Tyson Fury, but dropped him in their fight. Even though Fury won a controversial decision, Ngannou showed that an MMA fighter could hang with the very best in boxing. That fight gave Topuria's comments even more fuel. If Ngannou could make Fury look human, why couldn't Topuria believe he could do the same to Crawford? While the Topuria vs. Crawford drama dominated headlines, the MMA world was also shaken by news outside the cage. Reports surfaced that political figure Charlie Kirk had been shot while speaking on stage. The news spread quickly, and the MMA community reacted with emotion. Fighters from all backgrounds posted messages of shock, sadness, and reflection. Colby Covington, who was never shy about his political beliefs, called Kirk a patriot and a leader. Aljamain Sterling said that even though people can disagree on opinions, violence should never be the answer. Darren Till, Gilbert Burns, and Rampage Jackson each shared their prayers for Kirk's family. Bryce Mitchell posted a heartfelt video saying he couldn't sleep because he kept thinking about Kirk's wife and kids, and how unfair it was. Sean Strickland went deeper, talking about how society has become numb to violence, and how sad it is that people can cheer for tragedy. For a sport known for its toughness and brutality, it was a reminder that fighters are also human beings with families, emotions, and beliefs. They fight in cages for entertainment, but outside of it they care about the same things everyone else does: life, family, and safety. The reaction showed a side of MMA that fans don't always see, a side where even rivals put their differences aside to honor someone who had been taken too soon. Even with that heavy news, the UFC machine kept moving. Dana White made waves by talking about the possibility of holding a UFC event at the White House. He explained that security would be the biggest obstacle. The Secret Service has one job: protect the president. Adding thousands of screaming fans, a cage fight, and everything that comes with it would be almost impossible to control. Dana recalled being on the White House roof before, seeing snipers stationed there, and realizing how tight security island. Still, the fact that Dana is even talking about such an event shows how ambitious the UFC has become. It's not just about arenas and pay-per-views anymore. It's about breaking barriers and putting MMA in places nobody ever thought possible. Dominic Cruz shared a story that reminded fans of how crazy the fight game can be. Back in 2011, he fought Demetrius Johnson on short notice. To convince him to take the fight, Dana White promised him a Nissan GTR worth around $125,000. At the time, Cruz was living in a tiny one-bedroom studio, barely scraping by. Suddenly, he was pulling up in a six-figure sports car. He laughed about how his rent even went up because his landlord saw the car and assumed he was rich. It was a wild reminder of how fast things can change for fighters. One day you're broke, the next you're driving a dream car. Ben Askren's story has also inspired fans. After a double lung transplant, many thought his days of coaching and being active were over, but Askren has never been the type to sit still. He talked about setting small goals, 10-minute walks, 12-minute walks, and celebrating each one. He even started coaching wrestling again from his garage, working with small groups of kids. For Askren, it's about passion, not discipline. He said when you truly love something, you don't need to force yourself to do it. That's the message he's giving to his athletes and fans. Find something you love, and the work won't feel like work. Diego Lopez is another fighter in the spotlight. Ahead of his fight with John Silva, he made it clear he doesn't think the match will go the distance. He promised to push forward, trade punches, and finish the fight. His confidence comes from already testing himself against top-level fighters. He believes that when the cage door closes, Silva won't be able to keep up with his pace and pressure. Fans love fighters like Lopez because they don't come to play it safe, they come to entertain. Carlos Prates added another layer of drama by announcing his plan to retire at 35. He wants to win the welterweight title, get a rematch with Ian Gary, and then walk away. For him, it's about revenge and legacy. He respects Gary and his family, but losing to him has stayed in his mind for years. Prates believes he can fix his mistakes, win the belt, get his payback, and then leave the sport on top. It's a rare mindset in a sport where many fighters stay too long, chasing one more payday. Through all of these stories, the spotlight still circles back to Ilia Topuria and Terence Crawford. Could they ever actually fight? In boxing, the money would be huge. In MMA, the challenge would be real. The problem is, promoters don't always want to take the risk. Crawford has everything to lose if he steps into the cage. Topuria has everything to lose if he gets outclassed in the ring, but the idea itself keeps fans hooked. Topuria's aggressive style against Crawford's surgical precision, MMA's pride against boxing's tradition. Both men would be gambling their reputations. If Crawford boxed Topuria and lost, people would question his entire legacy. If Topuria boxed Crawford and was embarrassed, people would say MMA fighters never belonged in boxing. That's why, for now, this might stay just a war of words. But even without the fight happening, the rivalry is doing its job. It has fans arguing online, debating in bars, and dreaming about what could happen if the two worlds collide once again. And that's what makes this story so powerful. It isn't just about knockouts or decisions, it's about pride. It's about two fighters who refuse to bow down. Topuria believes in himself so much that he's willing to call out one of boxing's greatest. Crawford is so confident that he thinks the idea is laughable. And in the middle are millions of fans who can't stop asking the same question: what if?